This is going to be a presentation, images of the true Israelites. Now, the Israelites were forbidden to make images of themselves. So the images you see were images made by other people, especially the Egyptians, of whom we were slaves, and the Assyrians, of whom we were captive also. The first images that you're going to see are the images of us in Egypt. In Egypt, we were slaves. They put us to hard bondage, just like it says in Exodus chapter 1, verse 14. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick. Now, these images that you see go back to approximately 1,440 years before the birth of the JC character. So they go back approximately 4,000 years from today. The first image you see are images of the Hebrew brick makers. This next image, also from Egypt, is a water boy. This is a young Israelite. As you can see by his hair, he's got what they call nigger knots. Also, with his beard, is just starting to come in. So you can see his beard is just starting to come in, which would make this Israelite approximately 14 years old. The next image you see will be that of children working in a grape vineyard. As you can see, the boy has a typical bush, and the girl has the typical bad hair day. All these images are on the insides of the tombs of the Egyptian pharaohs, or the Egyptians of high rank. The Egyptians of high rank, along with the Egyptians of the pharaohs, made images of their slaves. And these images, all that you have seen here, are images of their slaves, images of the true children of Israel. This next image is a mural of the children of Israel coming into Egypt. These would be the family of Yaakov. This would go back to Genesis. The children of Israel came into Egypt as a family because of the famine that was in the land of Canaan. Joseph, at that time, was the vice president, so to speak, of the whole nation of Egypt. He got that position by interpreting Pharaoh's dream and setting up an economic system that would have them weather the impending famine. This image is a close-up of the mural that you just saw, and what I want to do is call attention to the contrast between the Egyptians and the Hebrews. As you can see, the Egyptians are of a darker hue, and their beards are much, much lighter. The Hebrews wore mostly woolen and goatskin garments, as opposed to the Egyptians that you see wearing white linen garments. The Egyptians abhorred goat herders. The Egyptians abhorred sheep herders. The Egyptians abhorred cow herders. All shepherds were an abomination to the Egyptians because shepherds actually ate their sacred animals. Much like in India, where it's forbidden to eat a cow, the Egyptians had a very similar ideology. Cows roamed free in Egypt just like cows roamed free in India. The Hebrews, being a shepherd people, had no problem eating cows or goats, lambs and sheep. In fact, they were sacrificial animals, whereas the Egyptians considered cows holy animals. They deified the cow. This next image is from the same mural. It's showing the Hebrews and especially how they looked. As you notice, they all have beards. Their clothing is all different. Same style, but different in its pattern, which is typical of Hebrew people, of which we are. Even the same styling, but the difference in the weave, the difference in the design. This is a typical Hebrew fashion. This image is from the same mural, but now we're going to focus on the women. As you can see, the women are still wearing their woolen garments. Weaving was one of the arts of the ancient Hebrews, as it still is. If you notice, every pattern of the women's garments are also different. The style is the same, but the weave and the design is all different. You also notice that the Hebrew women, unlike the Egyptian women, are stout, hardy women, as opposed to the thin, tall Egyptian women. Also, the beauty of the Hebrew women was such that the Egyptians would paint their eyes and paint their lips to look as good as Hebrew women looked naturally. This next image are part of a mural showing the races of men. This particular set of four are showing northern Hamitic men. As you can see, the Egyptians modeled the northern Hamitic family after themselves. If you notice, they all wear white linen skirts. They all have just a slight beard. This next set of four, also from the Egyptian archives, are showing the southern Hamites. These would be the people of Cush and Put. As you can see, their hair is much, much shorter. Their complexion is much, much darker, just as it is today. The races of man have not changed since they got off the ark. All the families of Noah are the same families that are depicted here. We've seen the families of the Hamites so far. The northern Hamites, which includes the Egyptians, the Libyans. The southern Hamites, which includes Cush and Put. Now we're going to look at the Hebrews. In sharp contrast to the children of Ham, you'll notice that these Hebrews are much lighter. They're brown skin as opposed to dark brown skin. They're paper bag brown as opposed to oven burnt brown. One of the things that typify the Hebrews is their beards, very full, as opposed to the Hamitics that you've seen before. Also, the Hamitics wore white linen as opposed to the Hebrew woolen skirts. Also, you'll notice that the Hebrews have fringes on the corners of their garments. The next image that you see will be that of Japhet. One of the things that you'll notice about Japhet is that he is much, much lighter than all of the other families that we've seen so far, as he is today. These four represent the European nations: Greece, Rome, France, Britain, Germany, Russia. These are the children of Japhet. You'll notice their headdress, that all of the other children or nations of man wore simple bands around their hair. You'll notice that the children of Japhet are much different, as they adorn their heads with feathers. You'll also notice that they also adorn their hair differently than any of the other families of man. They are bearded. Their garments are all very highly decorative, and you'll notice that their skin is highly tattooed. This was typical of the families of Japhet, that their tattoos represented who they were as a clan, as a family, and sometimes even as a nation. One of the things you'll also notice is that all of the other families of men wore their legs open. Japhet, as you can see, has on pants. This image is a close-up of a typical Hebrew as portrayed by the Egyptians. Here again, it's a simple headband, full beard, brown skin, and the fringed garment. This is probably an Israelite, because the Israelites were ordered to wear fringes on the corners of their garments. This was to remind them to do all the law, statutes, and commandments that the Almighty had given them. The images that we've seen so far are the images of Hebrews and other peoples as shown by the Egyptians. As I stated earlier, the Hebrews, particularly the children of Israel, were commanded not to make images of themselves. So the images that we see will be images of the Hebrews as portrayed by other people. The images that we are about to see now are images of our captivity by the Assyrians. As you can read in the Holy Scriptures, the children of Israel went into a captivity because they refused to follow the law, statutes, and commandments of the Almighty. Their first captivity was by the Assyrians. Their second captivity was by the Babylonians. These will be images of the Assyrian conquest of the northern kingdom. As you can see in this first image, the hair of the children of Israel is what they call kinky, nigger knot. Their beard is also kinky, nigger knot. This is how our hair will look when we cut it and it starts to grow back, but it's ungroomed, it's unkept. There's no comb that's going to go through it. This is exactly how the children of Israel look today when they cut their hair and it grows back ungroomed and uncombed. This next image is a close-up of these captives of the Assyrians. As you can see, these are not European individuals. These are the true children of Israel, and we look exactly the same as we did 3,000 years ago. This next image is another from the Assyrian archives. The children of Israel going into captivity. Now notice, these particular Hebrews, their hair is not cut short. Their hair is allowed to grow, but yet it is still ungroomed, and it will do exactly like our hair will do when it's ungroomed, but left to grow. It will lock. As you notice that these captives, their hair is locked. This is an image of a close-up of these Hebrews. You'll notice their locked hair and their beards. This next image is also from the Assyrian archive. It is a battle scene. Actually, it's the result of a battle scene. As you can see, they show their enemies, the Hebrews, dead. This particular scene is reminiscent of what the Almighty said would happen to the children of Israel if they did not follow the law, statutes, and commandments that He gave us. We would end up in this position. We would end up dead from the hands of our enemies, and even the birds would eat our eyes, as you can see in this step. And here again, you can see the Hebrews, especially their hair, and especially their beards. This is typical of what the Hebrews will look like, even us today, if our hair and our beard are unkept. It will lock, it will kink. These are not Europeans. This image you see now is a close-up of the dead Hebrews and the birds eating their eyes. In the book of the Kings, King Jehu of the northern kingdom surrendered to Shalmaneser of Assyria, the king of Assyria. This is showing King Jehu in supplication to the king of Assyria. Notice his humble clothing. Notice his kippah, the pointed kippah typical of the Hebrews during that era. This is a close-up of the Israelite king Jehu. His kippah, or head covering, is very similar to that which the children of Israel wear today. Notice his beard, and under that kippah is a head of locks, like we wear today. This next series of images will be images of the Babylonian captivity. The history is that the northern kingdom, led by the children of Ephraim, which included all the tribes of Israel, except for the tribes of Yehuda, the tribe of Levi, and remnants of the tribe of Dan and Benjamin. We just saw the images of the Assyrian captivity of the northern kingdom. Now we will see images of the Babylonian captivity of the southern kingdom. Here we see musicians, Israelite musicians, entertaining in the Babylonian courts. There's a very popular song called The Rivers of Babylon. By the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down and we cried when we remembered Zion. These musicians, like musicians today, were entertainers for the ruling class. Notice their hair in long locks. This is a close-up of those same Israelite musicians. You can see quite distinctly that they are exactly the same slaves that came to America. Full beard and head full of locks. And now that growing your hair in locks has become somewhat of a standard amongst our people, we can really see how our ancient ancestors look exactly like our modern day family. This next image is also from the Babylonian captivity, and is showing another defeat of the Hebrew peoples by the Babylonians. This image you're looking at now is from that same mural, and it is showing a defeated Hebrew, dead. Notice his locks, notice his beard. This is without a doubt the images that proves that the children of Israel were not Europeans In fact, the children of Israel look exactly today as they did 3,000 years ago. We have not changed. What you have seen so far are the images of the true children of Israel as portrayed by the Egyptians, by the Assyrians, and by the Babylonians. For our next series, we will go into how the children of Israel looked during their sojourn in Africa, and how the children of Israel looked in their slavery in America. The map that you're looking at now will be the introduction to part 2 of our 3-part series, Images of the True Israelites. This map shows the dispersion of the children of Israel in Africa. The children of Israel were dispersed in all directions, north, south, east, and west. This is showing the western dispersion into Africa, and part 3 will be our dispersion in America via the Atlantic slave trade. I urge you to open up your Bible, the Old Testament, and start with Genesis and read it like a book. You will see that not only do these images portray the true children of Israel, but as you read the stories of our people in Egypt and in our land, the land of Canaan, and our dispersion, you will see how we act, not just how we look. When you combine how we look and how we act, you will certainly come to the conclusion that the slaves that came here to America are the true children of Israel. I thank you. Yom Tov.